Let's continue our discussion of Ross Douthat's book, Believe. Why Everyone Should Be Religious. Today is the sixth part of our interpretation. Let's wrap up our discussion of this book. In this final section, we'll look at why Douthat chose Christianity, specifically Roman Catholicism. While his family and cultural background played a role, the main reason lies in the inherent appeal of Catholicism itself. Douthat can be described as the most open-minded Christian I've ever heard of. Within Catholicism, he is certainly unconventional. Yet he is not alone. He represents a tradition within Christianity known as perennialism, or the perennial philosophy. Perennialism holds that there is only one truth, but different religions can all serve as paths toward that truth. Truth should ultimately transcend specific historical eras and cultural contexts. Christianity was born out of the stories of Jews 2,000 years ago, which are far removed from the lives of modern Chinese people or contemporary society. Why should we cling to the Bible as if it were a fixed relic? Perhaps Buddhism or Taoism could more easily reveal truth to us. This way of thinking has a scientific spirit. It insists that believers should not only read doctrine, but also stay connected to objective reality. And precisely because of this spirit, perennialists tend to be fascinated by mystical religious experiences. That's why Douthat devotes so much space in his book to supernatural phenomena. One feature of Catholicism is that it does not shy away from the mystical. It acknowledges miracles. If someone can perform miracles, the Catholic Church may canonize them. It also remains open to ideas of Satan and demons. If you're talking about exorcism in the Western world, Catholicism is the go-to tradition. So Catholicism is in a sense more supernatural than Protestantism. It has a series of solemn sacraments, like confession and Mass. Even if you don't feel emotionally fervent, simply participating faithfully in these rituals is believed to bring grace. It seems that, if someone genuinely believes in God and intends to put faith into practice, Catholicism is a more fitting choice than the more secularized Protestant traditions. But why Christianity rather than, say, Islam or Hinduism? Douthat argues that Christianity possesses a crucial element that no other religion has: the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. That is perhaps the most extraordinary event in all of religious history. Let's briefly review it. At the time of Jesus' birth, the Jewish homeland, including Jerusalem, was under Roman rule. Jews suffered heavy taxes and political oppression. They followed Judaism, but the religion was fragmented into multiple sects. The Hebrew Bible contained a prophecy that a Messiah would come to deliver the Jewish people. Around the age of 30, Jesus began preaching in villages across Judea and in Jerusalem. He proclaimed, "The kingdom of heaven is near," urging people to repent, show mercy, and love one another. He reinterpreted Jewish law and claimed a unique relationship with God the Father. As he taught, healed, and exorcised demons, his reputation grew and disciples followed him. This provoked jealousy from Jewish leaders, while to the Romans, this new prophet appeared as a threat to stability. Some people even began to believe that Jesus was the Messiah. And Jesus himself hinted as much. History has seen similar situations. In Buddhism, for example, there is a belief that Maitreya will one day appear in the world. In Chinese history, peasant uprisings such as the White Lotus Rebellion often invoked Maitreya, with some leaders even claiming to be his incarnation. Unsurprisingly, Jesus became a target. After the Last Supper, he was arrested. Not by the Romans, but by Jewish authorities. They lacked the power to execute him, so they brought him to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, demanding a death sentence. Pilate initially resisted, but the Jewish leaders and crowds insisted. Under pressure, Jesus was crucified. After hours of agony, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Up to this point, nothing was unusual. If the story ended here, Jesus would have been just one of many failed messianic figures, and Christianity would never have developed. But on the third day after his death, Jesus rose again. It began when women visiting the tomb found it empty. Then Jesus appeared to his disciples and to strangers, even once to a crowd of 500. He spoke with them, walked with them. This was the turning point. For believers, God had intervened in history. A miracle had occurred. The disciples quickly organized themselves into a church. From then on, they were utterly convinced of Jesus' divinity, willing even to die for the gospel. 3 centuries later, Christianity became an officially recognized, institutionalized religion. Without the resurrection, there would be no Christianity. Convincing modern people of Jesus' resurrection is difficult. Scholars have examined the Bible, from archaeological and historical perspectives, searching for truth, but it is nearly impossible to disprove. Too much time has passed for third-party verification, and the biblical accounts contain no glaring inconsistencies. Multiple independent sources provide testimony, including letters and reports from strangers. If the resurrection never happened, then the disciples must have orchestrated an extraordinarily sophisticated deception. But the most striking evidence is the transformation of the disciples. Before the resurrection, they were hesitant and fearful. Peter himself denied Jesus. After his death, they should have disbanded. Instead, after the resurrection, their faith grew stronger than ever. However you interpret it, the resurrection is an extraordinary event in history. For Douthat, a lover of the supernatural, the resurrection signifies that God truly intervenes in the world. This means Christianity is not just about self-cultivation. It's for real. If it's real, then faith must be lived. If God truly intervenes and Judgment Day is coming, people must remain vigilant and ready, not drift through life carelessly. But even more important to Douthat, is the meaning of the crucifixion itself. Looking back after 2,000 years, it is the crucifixion, more than the resurrection, that sets Christianity apart. In other religions, prophets or sages are revered for their wisdom, power, or achievements. They establish teachings, gather disciples, and succeed during their lifetimes. Jesus, however, was different. He was not outwardly successful in life. His greatness lies in his suffering. Christianity teaches that Jesus bore humanity's sins. Humanity deserved punishment, but he suffered in our place. Salvation is not earned through good deeds, enlightenment, or meditation. It was given through his sacrifice. This selfless love is unique. Other religious figures may help alleviate suffering, but they do not take on the guilt of others. Justice demands punishment, yet God, through mercy, bore it himself. This elevated Christianity above earlier religions. Where other faiths appealed to power and strength, Christianity centered on love. The purest Christians are drawn not by might, but by compassion. In Roman times, strength was celebrated, and suffering was seen as weakness and disgrace. Within that context, Jesus' crucifixion gave Christianity a radically different foundation. The crucifixion has had profound effects on Western civilization. In our earlier discussions, we introduced Luc Budge's wanting, which draws on René Girard's theory, that human societies are driven by mimetic desire. Competition and envy accumulate, leading to violence. Social harmony is restored by scapegoating a victim. Jesus' death fits this pattern. Jewish leaders sought to preserve unity by scapegoating him. But something changed. Unlike typical scapegoating, Jesus was widely seen as innocent. People realized the scapegoating mechanism itself was unjust. This, some argue, marks the birth of Western civilization. Shifting from admiring the strong to sympathizing with the weak. From worshipping wisdom to revering compassion. From this point onward, Western society developed traditions of defending the vulnerable, speaking up for the weak, and enshrining human rights. Some scholars even argue that Marxism has Christian roots. Though Marxists opposed religion, their concern for the oppressed was born out of Christian soil. That brings us to the end of this book. Believe. Earlier I criticized Douthat in many places, but let me conclude with a few words in his favor. I'm not a believer, because I think any worldview must remain open to questioning. I strongly oppose those who claim to have found the final truth. I respect facts and scientific methods, without pledging allegiance to any school of thought. If pressed, I would say, I believe in Max Tegmark's mathematical universe. Douthat, by contrast, is a believer. He strongly trusts in the supernatural. But he is also a very modern believer, and in his view Christianity is a dynamic, living religion. While I don't share his worldview, I think he deserves respect. And knowing more about religion is no bad thing. At the very least, it reminds us that life is not only about work, exams, or mortgages. Some people are living out higher truths they hold dear. And that makes the world feel richer, more meaningful, and far more interesting than we often imagine. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.